everyone. In this chapter, we're going to be looking at the information that's from Chapter 6, Section 6.2, Converting Percents to Fractions, and Fractions to Percents. And so I kind of split it up a little bit. We're going to do it each way so you kind of get an idea as to the process for each of these. So basically, when we're converting percents to fractions, the first thing that you do is you want to go ahead and you'll remove the percent sign. So then it depends on the type of number that you're dealing with as to the process that you're going to use. So if you're dealing with whole numbers, you're going to write the percent as the numerator, and then you're going to go ahead and put 100 underneath it as your denominator, and then you reduce wherever you need to. If the answer is actually a fraction, you're going to take that fraction, you're going to multiply it by 1/100ths, and again, reduce where you need to reduce. Finally, if the number is a decimal, you're going to take that decimal, convert it to a fraction, and then multiply it by 1/100ths, and again, reduce as needed. So let's look at a couple of the examples that we have here. So one of the things that we're talking about, we have here 3%. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to remove that percent sign. Because this is a whole number, we're going to write the 3 as our numerator and then the 100 as the denominator. So we want to check and see if we can reduce. There is no number that will divide evenly into 3 and 100, so we know that it is already reduced to lowest term. So our answer for this one is 3/100ths. We go ahead, we take a look at our next one. We go ahead, we remove our percent sign, and again, we go ahead, we make that 57 our numerator, 100 becomes our denominator. So here, 57% converts to 57/100ths. But let's take a look at 2.5%. What are we going to do there? We need to multiply that by 1/100ths. Well, if you remember, when we have whole numbers, we have to go ahead and we're going to have to convert this to an improper fraction. So we get 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, so we get 5 halves, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply that by 1/100ths. So if we go ahead and we do that, we can cancel by dividing by 5 here and by 5 here, which is something that we did when we were dealing with fractions. So when we do that, we end up with 1 here and 20 here. When we multiply across, our answer ends up being 2 times 20 is 40, so our answer ends up being 140. And then finally, we have 4.5%. If you remember, it says because we're dealing with a decimal here, we have to take this decimal and we have to go ahead and we have to convert it to a fraction. So what we know is we know that this is 5/10, which if we wrote it as 5/10, we know that's going to go ahead and that equals 1/2. So basically what we end up with is 4.5. We're going to go ahead and multiply this out. We get 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So we get 9 halves times our 1/100ths. And basically we know that there's no canceling that can be done here. So we end up with 9/200ths as our answer there. So this is the steps that we take to convert percents to fractions. Let's go ahead and look at what we do when we convert fractions to percents. The first thing we need to do, we have to change a fraction to a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So that's pretty common. We've done that before. We're going to multiply that number then by 100, which as we know, when we multiply by 100, we move our decimal point 2 places to the right. That's what we need to do. And then we're going to add zeros as they're needed. So let's go ahead and take, and then finally, we don't want to forget to add our percent sign. So let's go ahead and do that. So in this problem right here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide 10 into 1. Well, we know that we can't do that. We have to add a 0. So when we add our 0, 10 goes into 10 one time. So 1 times 10 is 10. So our answer ends up being 0.1. So what we're saying is when we do that, then we have to change this and multiply it by 100 by moving this 2 places to the right. So we go 1, 2. But the problem is we don't have another 0 there. So we're going to go ahead, add our 0 here, and our answer becomes 10, and we add our percent sign, it's 10%. So let's look at this one right here. If we go ahead and we divide 69 into 100, looking at this, we know that 100 can't divide by 69. We put our decimal point in. We add our 0. It's going to go ahead and we get a 6. So we have 600. So we're doing just our basic division that we did in chapter 1. So then we get 90. We have to bring a 0. We have to add a 0. We're going to bring a 0 down. Makes it 69 hundredths. So to do this, we're going to take our 69 hundredths, move it over 2 places. Our answer becomes 69%. And then finally, with our problem right here, what we need to do is we have to go ahead and we're going to divide 4 into our 15. So when we do that, though, 4 does multiply into 15 3 times. So we're going to end up with a little bit larger percentage here. So because this multiplies here, we bring our 3 down. We're going to have to go ahead and put our decimal point in, bring a 0 down, okay, and then we're going to go divide 4 into 30, and we end up with 7. 7 times 4 is 28. Bring another 0 down. We get 3.75 as our answer. We subtract our 20 here. We end up with 0. But now we move our decimal, we have to move the decimal point over 2 places. So we're going to move it 1, 2, and we actually end up with our answer as being 375%. So this kind of highlights the process that you use to change your percents to fractions and then fractions to percents.